The Chair.
Colleagues, we'll now resume the Standing Finance Committee. I'd like to go to Head 61. Head 61, Ministry of Housing and Urban Development. Head 61, Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, $1,457,192,000. I will now invite the Minister of Housing and Urban Development to make a brief statement, kindly not exceeding 5 minutes. Proceed, Mr.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Chair. Mr. Chair, the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, together with its implementing agencies, is mandated to stimulate national development by transforming the country's urban and peri-urban landscape.
Hold on, okay. Members, we now resume from lunch. So let's kindly get on with the business of the House at this time, please. And again, I'd like to hear, and each one of us should want to hear the Minister of Housing, so proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Chair. I say again, Mr. Deputy Chair, that the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, together with its implementing agencies, is mandated to stimulate national development by transforming the country's urban and peri-urban landscape, as well as providing affordable housing solutions in a holistic and responsible manner. This mandate is aligned to the National Strategic Development Goals, Vision 2030, putting people first by creating sustainable cities and communities to enhance the quality of life for the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. The Ministry's core areas of responsibility include provision of government-subsidized housing, monitoring and evaluation of housing trends and markets in the country, provision of home improvement grants and subsidies, regularizations of tenure of housing for squatters, land settlement, urban development. The Ministry has 8 affiliated organizations which implement and promote its policies, plans, programs, and projects. These are Housing Development Corporation, the Sugar Industry Labor Welfare Committee, Trinidad Tobago Mortgage Finance Company Limited, Urban Development Corporation of Trinidad and Tobago, Land Settlements Agency, the East Port of Spain Development Company Limited, Eastside Plaza, and New City Mall. Mr. Deputy Chairman, this ministry is focused on increasing home ownership through its accelerated housing program, with its associated mortgage program, the aided self-help program, and the housing and village improvement program. We also focus on providing a greater number of rental units and maintaining the agency's rental properties. The ministry also assists in the refurbishment of existing housing stock through the provision of home improvement grants. Our urban development portfolio is spearheaded by the UDCAT, which delivers capital projects. Our urban regeneration projects, which include infrastructural developments in the urban areas, utilizing a comprehensive and integrated approach, companies such as East Port of Spain Development Company Limited and UDCAT are committed to achieving community regeneration through economic, social, physical, and cultural developments. In Port of Spain, the New City Mall and Eastside Plaza are instrumental in nurturing and promoting micro-businesses and entrepreneurial activities to create productive employment opportunities and private sector investment. Mr. Deputy Chair, another of our ministry's main responsibilities is the enhancement of the living conditions of certain communities through infrastructural developments carried out by the land settlement agencies. The Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, through its various agencies, continue to deliver on its mandate to provide affordable, innovative, sustainable housing solutions, the redevelopment and regeneration of urban and peri-urban spaces and infrastructure development. The ministry remains committed to ensuring that our policies and programs remain relevant. We will continue to re-engineer and innovate as the need arises. Permit me also to extend sincere thanks and appreciation to the Permanent Secretary and the ministry's team, as well as the agencies that fall under the ministry's purview, for facilitating a seamless passing of the baton of responsibility. I look forward to next fiscal year to build on the work started by my predecessors. I thank you, Mr. Deputy Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Minister. I'd like to welcome at this time, Madam Permanent Secretary of your ministry, and also the senior executives from the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development. Welcome. Honorable members, the question is that the sum of $1,457,192,000 for Head 61, Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, stand part of the schedule. Honorable members, the sum of $1,457,192,000 for Head 61, Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, is comprised of monies proposed for expenditure under the following subheads and items to be found in the draft estimates of recurrent expenditure, the draft estimates of the revenue and expenditure of statutory boards and similar bodies, and of the Tobago House of Assembly, and the draft estimates of the development program. We shall now proceed to consider the draft estimates of recurrent expenditure. And colleagues, subhead 01, personal expenditure, page 302 of our recurrent expenditure booklet. Item 001, general administration, page 302. Subhead 02, goods and services. Item 001, general administration, pages 302 to 303. Subhead 03, minor equipment purchases. Item 001, general administration. Subhead 04, current transfers and subsidies, page 304. Item 009, other transfers. Item 011, transfers to state enterprises, pages 304 to 305. Subhead 06, current transfers to statutory boards and similar bodies, page 305 of the next booklet. So we now move on to booklet, statutory boards and similar bodies, and of the Tobago House of Assembly. And we are going to page 449, page 449, subhead 06, current transfers to statutory boards and similar bodies. Item 004, statutory boards. Honorable members, we'll now move on to the draft estimates of the revenue and expenditure of statutory boards and similar bodies of the Tobago House of Assembly. 18, Sugar Industry Labor Welfare Fund Administration. One second. Subhead 01, personal expenditure. Item 001, general administration, page 449. And I recognize the member for point of view.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, line item 06, remuneration of board members. And in 2019 is estimated, budgeted for the remuneration fees of board, $327,000. Is there a board in place presently, Minister?
There is a board in place. The board, however, doesn't have a full quorum at this point in time. There are 4 members. 5 is required for a quorum out of the 9. We are in the process of fulfilling that board right now.
Okay. Can I ask a general statement in respect to that line item? In respect to point of view, the Taruba area falls under sugar welfare, and that and trying to get some sort of assistance from that agency in trying to bring some clarity to the owners of properties within that Taruba that falls under the sugar welfare and the infrastructure aspect has been a challenge for me as an MP. Respect of who has the responsibility for that particular area. So I'm asking that as you have a board in place, and I'm hoping that I can get some clarity from that board, because I have had a challenge in the last 2 years in trying to get some information on the infrastructure aspect of the Taruba lands that falls under the Sugar Welfare Board.
So if I get you right, you're asking for some information as to how we can treat it.
Correct.
Correct? I can provide you with that.
That will be provided.
For you.
Right, fair enough. Urupuchis.
Thank you very much. Minister, on the same matter, 06, remuneration to board members. Minister, I'm quite aware that you're relatively new to this particular portfolio, but could you indicate, not necessarily now, but in writing at a later time, if this board over the last 3 years was ever properly constituted, and when that board was last constituted and the members then?
No, remember the statutes as we go by is based on 2019.
Okay, let me phrase it differently then.
Remember, we have made that clear in terms of
sure.
our demarcations.
In 2019, the projection is $166,500.
Yes.
This, Minister, is to ensure the increase. Sorry, I'm looking here at the current figure for 2019. Is it 580? Estimate
You want 06?
06, 327.
That's what it is, 327.
327.
327, correct. The actual 2017 was 25, and you have an increase. So at this time, the board is not fully composed.
No.
At this time.
That's correct.
Just asking how long this has been so, that's all.
That was with effect from about 3 months now.
3 months ago.
Roughly about 3 months.
Thank you.
Yeah. Because of the resignation of one of the members.
Sure. Could I ask the name of the member who resigned?
Vinda Maraj.
Sure, thank you.
Subhead 02, Goods and Services, item 001, General Administration. Subhead 03, Minor Equipment Purchases, page 450, item 001, General Administration. We now move to 54, Land Settlement Agency. Subhead 01, Personal Expenditure.
What page, sir?
We are on page 458, item 001, General Administration of the same booklet.
Yes.
Have a question, member?
No.
Okay. Subhead 02, Goods and Services, page 458, item 001, General Administration. I recognize Tabakit.
I notice you have a $14 million allocation, which is $2.4 million more than the previous year. Can you give me an idea of who are these contract officers and what are they doing, and with what goals in mind for achievement at the end of the specific financial year?
Mr. Minister?
Yep, sure. 1 second. I have the numbers not worry. Right, let me clarify your question. You asked the question, who? Do you request the name of the individual, or you want the positions? I want to make
Yeah, I want to know the name of an individual.
because you just said who? Who are the contract? So I want to clarify.
I don't want the names. All I want to know, how many persons are there?
I can give you that.
In what positions they are there? What are they doing? But I wanted to know that in relation to what are the goals that they intend to achieve and what are the deliverables in this, because there's always a question of this land settlement agency and whether it's achieving its goals or not.
Mr. Minister, that information can be provided now?
I can provide the number of persons. I can provide some of that.
Proceed.
Right, so I can give you the total number of contract officers are in fact 27 right now. There are a number of different positions, from accounts clerk to administrative support clerks, the conveyance officer, corporate secretary, field investigators, hospitality attendants, ICT support officers, land use planners, legal officers, paralegal officers, security officers, business operation assistants. I'm just running through it randomly to give you a sense, because if I give it the entire list, it will take us some time. So, field investigators, GIS technicians, planning technicians, research officers, security patrol officers, audit clerks, accounts clerks.
Okay.
And so there's a list, and the list can go on. I can provide you with the entire list if you so desire. But those are the categories of contract officers.
Right.
But you have specific deliverables.
Yeah, of course, we do have specific deliverables. They worked in achieving the land settlements remit in terms of both squatter regularizations, which involves improving conditions of persons living in squatter communities and so on. They also involve in the aided self-help programs. So there are a number of programs across the land settlement agencies that these contract officers assist in achieving the goals and objectives.
Tabakit?
On item 22, in addition to the contract employment, you have $3.2 million worth of short-term employment. What is defined as your short-term employment, and what kinds of occupations?
Short-term employment is about 3 months, 3-month employment. And it depends on a number of different situations, for instance. So that would involve short-term projects, for instance, like a perimeter survey, for instance, and would take 3 months to complete. So they do a short-term contract for that, and areas of those.
Okay.
I will now go to Caroni Central.
Yes, general question on 001, general administration. For this budgeted amount for land settlement agency, how many squatters are likely to be regularized in 2019, and in how many settlements?
Minister?
Yes. 1 second. I can give you the answer in a while. How many sites we have?
That makes sense.
We have it up. No, provided. See one answer under DP? We have it under DP? We have it under DP? Otherwise, I could delay the question. All right.
If you don't have it now, you can provide,
No.
once we have the information.
The answer is that we, in fact, right, for 2018-2019, we're going to regularizing 1,000 sites. 1,000 sites. That's the aim.
1,000 sites, 1,000 persons.
1,000 squatters.
Yes, okay.
That's the aim for 2018-2019.
So that will be 1,000 lots. 1,000 plots?
Yeah, 1,000 squatters.
1,000 persons.
Yeah, well, that's.
Well, so squatters. A squatter is a plot or...
Do you know how many sites? Or if it's going to be one site or several?
251.
10 sites in 2018.
10 sites.
10 sites.
10 sites, 2018-2019.
You don't need to provide it now, but could you give us the information on the names of the sites?
Sure, we can do that.
To be provided.
To be provided.
Lovely. Subhead 02, Goods and Services. Item 001, General Administration, page 449. Subhead 03, Minor.
Page 45?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, I called the wrong thing. My apologies. Item 0, Subhead 03, Minor Equipment Purchases, page 459. Item 001, General Administration. Subhead 04, Current Transfers and Subsidies, page 459. Item 007, Households. Item 009, Other Transfers. Honorable members, we will now move on to the draft estimates of the development program. Subhead 09, Development Program, Consolidated Fund, page 123. Item 004, Social Infrastructure, pages 123 to 126. I recognize Urupuch East.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chairman. I just asked the Minister on item 086. Could the Minister indicate the works done for the 2018 period?
086.
Because there's no estimate for 2019.
Yeah, I have it there. No releases for 2018. Okay. All right, there were no releases for under this vote for 2018.
There were no releases?
No releases.
Okay, thank you. Secondly, Minister, at 075, rehabilitation and maintenance of HDC rental apartments and housing units. If I'm correct, I'm seeing the estimate for 2019 at $22 million.
That's correct.
If I can ask whether now or later to have a breakdown of the proposed works and proposed estates that work will be commencing in the 2019 period to use that $22 million provided?
Right, I can provide you with some of that information.
Sure.
The planned rehabilitation and maintenance work to be carried out in fiscal 2019 include remedial works to roofs, refurbishment works to buildings in Naparima, Mayaro Apartments, Rushwood Street, Orchid Gardens, Current Hills, Harmony Hall, drainage, dredges, cleaning, refurbishment of vandalized units, and also works in some of the areas like Lakeview, Point Fortin, remedial works to houses, Mbakade, remedial works to roofs, Naparima, Mayaro, refurbishment works to buildings and recreational, Jamada Street, roof repairs, Rushwood Street, refurbishment works to building, Orchid Gardens, refurbishment works to buildings, Current Hills, refurbishment works to buildings, Open Gardens, refurbishment works to buildings, Maloney Gardens, refurbishment works to buildings, Dorata Street, demolition of structural comprising buildings, Chumaka, demolition of structural foundation, of structural buildings, compromised buildings, that is. Saconia Crescent, drainage, View Fort, slope stabilization and drainage works, Greenville, detention pond, dredging and cleaning, Oasis, detention pond, dredging and clearing, Harmony Hall, refurbishment of buildings and infrastructure. So those are some of them.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Minister. Minister, if I may just add something onto this area here.
Sure.
One of the critical problems we face now in several HDC sites, including sites that you called there, given the crisis with crime and criminality and so on, there have been a lot of complaints concerning lighting in the various HDC districts. And if I can ask that in the coming fiscal, under this heading or another, as the case may be, to devise some program in collaboration with T&Tech to install streetlights in several of the estates. And I think immediately, for example, of Wellington in Debe. I think, of course, of the current extension. I think you're aware of it. The Union Hall estate as well, which is up and running, and there's a second phase there. But there are a lot of complaints have been coming in that, and I'm wondering whether some of the resources here could be used as well in collaboration with T&Tech to have a special program for street lighting in the HDC estates. And the HDC can undertake their own assessments, security assessments, and so on, to facilitate that.
Mr. Minister.
Right. Certainly. And as a matter of fact, it is captured under the heading Health and Safety Retrofitting Works to be conducted in fiscal 2019.
What number is it, please?
No, this is my response to you. The
Okay,
same response in terms of electricity.
Sure.
Because HDC plans to retrofit older buildings to include lighting, demolitions of fire damaged units, repairs of fire escapes, and also look at the lighting in the various communities, especially in the new areas and so on. Commissioner of fire suppression units. We also implemented the HSC response and evacuation procedure of these developments. So electricity, in terms of the lighting and so on, is also captured under that heading. So we will be addressing those issues.
Great. Minister, number 235. At 235, I'm seeing the allocation for 2019 at $10 million.
Yes.
And if as well you can indicate, if you choose now, but I mean, you can indicate in writing later, I guess. What really is the Housing and Village Improvement Program about? Which villages and so on are earmarked to be the beneficiaries of this line item to the tune of $10 million in fiscal 2019? And I addressed the Minister of Housing frontally.
Minister?
The Housing and Village Improvement Program is an initiative that was taken by this government to look at at areas that are sort of characterized by very poor, underdeveloped housing conditions. And the pilot project was done in Moruga, in Samuel Cooper settlement in Moruga. And it's actually a combined effort between the villagers and the Ministry of Housing, where the villagers contribute in terms of sweat equity, and the Ministry of Housing, through the LSA, would contribute roughly about $100,000 towards the building. So we combine working, ensuring that the community is involved in the program. So the combination of the HDC, the Land Settlement Agency, together with the community, working together to give startup houses, as a matter of fact. They're actually just startup houses. So they're not complete houses they're provided with. Working together with the community and provide startup houses.
Thank you very much, Minister, for outlining the policy and project agenda. In fact, I might say I missed terribly your presentation in the budget. I would really have liked to hear about that. Minister, in this whole housing and village improvement program, could you indicate how a village or somewhere in the country, listening to you today, hearing of this very ambitious program and helpful program, can apply? Does a village apply? I imagine it's not an HDC site we are talking about.
No, it's not.
It is a village. How would the village of, Retrench apply to say we have a particular area that is depressed, we would like to partner with the Ministry of Housing and develop ourselves so that we can also benefit from this useful endeavor? What is the criteria? What is the application form? What do they satisfy? I'm sure it is a very objective criteria.
Right. It is not based on an application from the villagers, but it's based on a social surveys that's conducted by the land settlement agencies. And we intend to conduct those surveys throughout the length and breadth of Trinidad and Tobago. And based on the result of those surveys, we'll identify them, and based on a needs basis,
Sure.
the areas that can benefit from this program.
And as members of parliament in the House, are we also free vis-a-vis this program to communicate with the Ministry of Housing and or the Land Settlement Agency to propose where villages can benefit from this program of sweat equity of villagers and assistance from the ministry to build starter houses in specific areas?
Yes, I'm sure you can propose. But again, you can certainly propose and we will listen. Let me give you some of the selection criteria.
Sure.
The quality of the infrastructure, sort of unpaved roads in villages and so on, presence of drains in the villages, access to potable waters, the houses in the village areas, electricity in terms of whether the direct supply of electricity, in terms of quality of the housing, the percentage of substandard and below substandard housing, employment and income levels, percentage of persons currently employed, access to community facilities, disabilities, susceptibility to natural disasters, historical significance, tenure status, etc. So those are some of the areas that we looked at.
Sir, could I add one issue to that? The persons in ownership and occupation of a lot of land, with all the criteria you have described, those persons, is it for persons who have already received a certificate of comfort, or is it squatter communities? What tenure or security the occupier require to access this program?
It would be anyone who fits this criteria.
No, but
you don't necessarily need to have a certificate of comfort to qualify for it.
You could be in a squatter community.
Of course.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I'm seeing here under line item 237, regularization of squatter communities. And I think my colleague from Caroni Central had raised a matter. If we can, now or at a later time, indicate the communities that would benefit from this vote of $15 million for the fiscal 2019.
Right.
Right.
Between 2018 and 2019, we intend to look at Bliss Village to Ruba, Babande A and Babande B, Blake Avenue, Sandy Grande, and Moonan Road.
Okay, Minister, 239, government-aided self-help program, a new project here. You have a proposal of $2.5 million. Would you care now and or later to give us some detail as to the character of this program, the intended beneficiaries, the process for accessing the program?
Certainly. The government-aided self-help housing program was officially launched on November 10th, 2017. This is a new initiative of the ministry that targets low and middle income earners and assists them to manage the construction of their own homes with financial and technical support from the state. Through this strategy, fully developed housing lots are sold at 30% of its market value. Beneficiaries of this program will have access to subsidized mortgage facilities from the Trinidad and Tobago Mortgage Finance Company Limited, pre-approved house plans and oversight assistance for the constructions of their dream homes. Citizens who own land but still require assistance with the home construction process can access subsidized mortgages from the TTMF, pre-approved housing plans, a list of contractors, technical oversight for the constructions of their homes. So that's the basis of the program.
Minister, I really do applaud that. It sounds remotely familiar to the Land for the Landless program. But Minister,
it's
could I ask?
it's an improvement.
Yeah.
Better than the Land for the
I'm
Landless.
sure, Minister, I'm sure that your programs are much better than those that went before you. There were 4 ministers before you there. And I pray to God you don't have 4 ministers after you in the remainder of the term. Minister,
any more
could I
questions?
ask? Yes, of course.
Well, proceed.
On this matter, Minister, you would be aware that there were national random draws for the Land for the Landless program. Could I ask, given that those, I believe it was 2 random draws, those applicants who were successful, are those applicants being considered as well for the government-aided self-help program? And how many applicants so far have been awarded assistance under the government-aided self-help program?
Minister?
Okay, an audit was conducted with respect to those who were selected randomly, and there were some people who were qualified, some who have been qualified, and those who were qualified are being dealt with, are being treated with.
If you could, at a later time, just indicate exactly how many persons who were successful at the random draw would have qualified and are being provided for under this government-aided self-help program. And I can understand that, Minister, because as you may know, the random draw was for persons who applied.
Of course.
It is when you are selected, you go through the process to see if they qualified. I think San Fernando East didn't understand the concept then, but that is what it was for. So the amount of persons who would benefit, who were fortunate enough to be selected by a random draw.
We can provide that.
Sure.
Will be provided.
Good.
Yeah, that is under his name.
Other colleagues, I don't.
Yeah, Land for the Landless.
Carney Central?
Yeah, could I have a quick follow-up question on that? What is the process by which a person who applied in the random draw process, but who did not carry over to your process, can make an appeal for reconsideration, given that they might have legitimate reasons for doing so?
No, when you
say
say
they own no land, they have a family, etc.
no, when you say didn't carry forward, if they didn't carry forward, it means either if they were qualified, then they're being treated with. If they didn't qualify, then it means that they didn't qualify. So they're not a person of carrying over that individual.
No, well, I'm not asking this in a vacuum.
Right. Well,
At least one constituent came to me, in which all the conditions were legitimate. And she had originally been selected in the random draw, had been notified, but she does not now qualify. I wrote a letter to you on the matter. I'm not saying that you have seen it or not.
Fair enough.
And I just wanted to know what was the process by which one makes an appeal on behalf of somebody like that who has a legitimate claim.
Well, that will be dealt with on a case-by-case basis. We'll see what the issues are.
Item 005, multi-sectoral and other services, page 126. Infrastructure Development Fund, page 217 of the same booklet. 217 of the same booklet.
17. What? 217. Yeah. Which book? Same book. 217. Yeah. I have it marked out here, but there were so many issues arising. 217. Yes.
Right.
We are at 217.
Item 004, social infrastructure, and
Yes.
that pages 217 and 218. Proceed, Reproaches.
Thank you very much.
Identify which page you're on. And
I'm
line
on page 217 under Settlements 230 Accelerated Housing Program. Minister, you have a vote here of $200 million for the Accelerated Housing Program for this fiscal. I would like to get some detail as to, now, this comparatively speaking is not a grand sum for Accelerated Housing Program. So you will have your priorities. If you could outline the priorities for the fiscal 2019 that would be provided for the $200 million that you have budgeted, your priorities, and then I'll ask some questions on other issues.
Mr. Chairman, before we continue.
Minister of Finance.
Yeah, before we continue, the Ministry of Housing will also benefit from the housing bond that we intend to float during this fiscal in the amount of $1.5 billion. So in addition to this 200 million, they will also have $1.5 billion available to them for their accelerated housing program.
Chairman, I was coming to those issues and related issues after we got an explanation of what you're going to use with the 200 for now.
So, Minister, for now, the figure identified?
Right. With respect to the 200 million allocated for 2019, the agency intends to continue ongoing, restarted and new projects, such as Terrestrial Lands Dabity, Bonnet South Aruka, Real Springs Housing Development, River Run through Arima, Buenintendo, Princestown.
Mr. Minister, could I ask this status, if you could now again or provide information of the housing, the proposed housing estate at Indian Trail in central Trinidad? What is the status of that estate? Again, if you need some time, it's not a, I don't need
the information.
I don't necessarily.
I'll provide that to you.
Sure.
Okay, will be provided.
That's fine. The related matter with that, Minister, is if we can have an assessment from you of monies outstanding for works completed by contractors in the housing sector. How much is outstanding for completed works or works not in dispute? Because I know you have some disputes with persons and so on, but for works that have been certified and where there's no dispute, the amount outstanding and the name of the contractor that is being owed by the HTC.
Minister?
All right. I'm unable to give you that accurate figure at this point in time.
Sure, but you can.
Because it's difficult to ascertain. In fact, most of the matters are still under investigation to ascertain finalized figures and so on.
Okay, I'll take it from you that some or most, as you say, matters are still being investigated. That is regrettable that 3 years plus we are still investigating. But having said that, you must have in your possession at the Ministry or thereabout at the HDC works that have been completed, certified, and for which there's no dispute. And the question really was, what do you propose in 2019 fiscal in terms of meeting and treating with outstanding debts to the contractors where there is no dispute?
But once there's no dispute, then we'll settle accordingly.
You settle accordingly.
Once there's no dispute, of course.
Good. Could I move on, or colleagues?
No, you go ahead.
Yeah. The urban redevelopment and urban renewal, community development, I'm seeing here. If the minister would be kind enough to give us some detail on the work proposed for the $12 million and $3 million in both 001 and 002, what works should be carried out in this fiscal pursuant to that line item?
Okay. In terms of 001, this is implementation of urban redevelopment program for East Port of Spain. We are looking at the areas such as Romaine lands, MOVA, with respect to covered drains, pavements, and handrails, and so on. Gobera Avenue, Coconut Drive, and they also involved in the latrine eradication program in some 19 communities throughout East Port of Spain. In fiscal 2019, some of those started in 2018 and continuing.
Minister, still have additional information? Mr. Minister?
No, that's it.
Could I follow up? Minister, pursuant to these two line items that deal with redevelopment and so on, and the HDC communities, Minister, you might be aware that the HDC and the Ministry of Housing procured 2 trucks, the famous pothole machine trucks, they were huffed by the Ministry of Works and Transport.
Line item.
I'm on urban redevelopment and urban renewal, which includes some road works, as the minister said, and drainage works and
The
so on.
trucks relate to that also.
So, and it relates to that. And the objective, Minister, was to use those machines to patch the roads in HDC communities, because we understood that we
Mr.
couldn't
Chairman,
pave all the roads. We did not have the money.
I'm advised-
Would you take steps to
Does not-
retrieve those trucks from the Ministry of Works to undertake critical work in the HDC communities as it relates
Chairman,
to
Minister
I'm
of Finance.
fixing the roads?
advised that this does not apply to this line item.
But could you repeat what is this urban redevelopment and renewal about? I got the impression it was to
Again, Minister,
Just
you would have
spruce up
given the
and-
information on that particular,
spruce
those
up
two line
and
items.
rehabilitate communities.
Minister, I'm guided that, again, the information you're requesting is not identified in these line items.
So in these line items have nothing to do with refurbishing and fixing buildings, roads, and infrastructure, and so on.
I think I mentioned drains, covered drains, pavements, handrails, bleachers, hard courts, and the
But,
latrine eradication
Minister,
program.
surely fixing potholes is related to
That's under-
fixing
Chairman,
drains and fixing.
This line item
that-
does not refer to the trucks that the member is speaking about.
Remember, we need to move on.
Sure,
What's your next question?
I'm on the next page, but you're not there yet. That's the multilateral.
Right.
I'll
So we go
leave, I'll
now
leave
to-
it there for now.
Right, so we go to item now, 005, multi-sectoral and other services, page 218. Proceed, Honorable Chief.
Yes, thank you. Minister, could you just confirm the development, I'm at 001, development and management of the property located at 43 Independence Square, Portsmouth. Could you confirm what property is this?
That's the
Minister?
property commonly referred to as a drag mall next to New City Mall.
Sure.
Right. If you recall, it was
Salvatore.
no, there was a fire there quite recently.
Yes,
Destroyed-
yes.
Right, that's the building we're talking about.
The development program provides for $4 million. What exactly you propose to do with the $4 million in fiscal 2019?
Minister?
Again, because of the fire that was there recently, I think it was in August, around August, there was a fire that literally destroyed that building. After engineers checked this, said that the building is unsafe and we have to remove all the tenants out. It's a question of demolition and looking at reconstruction later on.
Princess Town, member?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Chairman. I'm really asking this question for point of peers. But with respect to line item 00506, could the Honorable Minister indicate who is the owner of this property and how long is this project expected to take?
Where are you?
One
I'm
second,
lost.
member. You said 005 and 06.
We're in a multi-sectorial. You know.
Oh, I'm on the other page, sorry.
Oh, you're on the same item that your colleague just spoke about.
Yes, sir.
Right, and the question is again? Let's
The
go ahead.
question is, who is the owner of the property and how long is this project expected to take, please?
Right, so Minister, that's on 001, the same property with the fire. He'd like to know. Ask his question, answer.
It's a Ministry of Housing property. It's state property.
Is that confirmed? Because you said probably.
No, I didn't property. I said property.
Oh, okay, sure.
Right.
And how long is the project expected to take and be completed?
I don't have a timeline yet, but it's based on the demolition and the construction. But we're catered to start the project in 2019.
Okay.
Princess Town.
Minister, the allocation for this particular line item, can you indicate whether or not this sum will complete the entire project, or do you envisage that you will require more money the next financial year?
It's difficult to say because it's based on the cost for the demolition, and then plans are being dealt with for the new building. So
Okay, so there's no total comprehensive of both demolition and reconstruction?
that's good. It depends on the amount of work to be done.
Okay.
Honorable members, the question is that the sum of $1,457,192,000 for Head 61, Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, stand part of the schedule. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. The sum of $1,457,192,000 for Head 61, Ministry of Housing and Urban Development now stands part of the schedule. Thank you, Mr. Minister. Thank you, Madam PS, and all the senior executives of the ministry. Thanks for coming. Minister of Finance. Minister of Finance, you are responsible. Okay. Head 12, Public Service Appeal Board. Head 12, Public Service Appeal Board. $3,500,000. I will now invite the Minister of Finance . She sees that one day. Start with up.
Put it here.
I will now invite the Minister of Finance to make a brief
Opening statement for not exceeding 5 minutes. Head 12.
Tax Appeal Board? Public Service Appeal Board. Okay. You have a description of what you will do? You all handle it. Obviously, yes, sir. Decisions of the Service Commission before it goes to court.
After it is decided.
I was just looking to ask what the procedure was.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Public Service Appeal Board is a tribunal that handles appeals of decisions made by the Public Service Commission. Public officers would have issues with respect to promotion, appointments, and disciplinary matters where they would either be seeking a decision from the Commission or they would have received one and would not be satisfied with the outcome of their matter. They are entitled to appeal decisions of the Public Service Commission to the Public Service Appeal Board. It's an intermediary tribunal. There are many tribunals like this which are set up ostensibly to avoid the costs and delay associated with going to the High Court. It's intended to be a form of dispute resolution.
Honorable members, the question is that the sum of $3,500,000 for Head 12, Public Service Appeal Board, stand part of the schedule. Honorable members, the sum of $3,500,000 for Head 12, Public Service Appeal Board, is comprised of monies proposed for expenditure under the following subheads and items to be found in the draft estimates of recurrent expenditure. We shall now examine the draft estimates of recurrent expenditure. We are at page 53. Subhead 01, personnel expenditure. Item 001, general administration. Subhead 02, goods and services. Item 001, general administration, pages 53 and 54. Subhead 03, minor equipment purchases, item 001, general administration. Honorable members, the question is that the sum of $3,500,000 for head 12, Public Service Appeal Board, stand part of the schedule. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. The sum of $3,500,000 for head 12, Public Service Appeal Board, now stands part of the schedule. Thank you, Minister Matthew, Registrar and members of the Public Service Appeal Board. Head 09, Tax Appeal Board. We are at page 46 of the recurrent. Head 09, Tax Appeal Board, $5,772,600. I will now invite the Minister of Finance to make a brief opening statement, not exceeding 5 minutes. Minister.
Tax Appeal Board of Trinidad and Tobago is a superior court of record established in 1966 by Act of Parliament, Chapter 450 of the laws of Trinidad and Tobago. It determines, as a superior court, it determines the procedure to be followed in an appeal and issues practice directions from time to time. The court deals with a wide variety of issues on appeal in respect of both direct and indirect taxes, as well as anti-dumping appeals and other related matters such as land and building taxes, petroleum taxes, and appeals pursuant to various pieces of legislation such as the Financial Institutions Act, the Tourism Development Act. In relation to both direct taxes such as income and corporation tax and indirect taxes such as value-added tax or customs and excise duty, the quantum involved routinely concerns appeals from assessments involving millions of dollars. Because of the nature of the jurisdiction, it frequently involves multinational corporations seeking to offset head office expenses among members of the group or debt write-off. Okay, that's the functions and purview of the board.
Honorable members, the question is that the sum of $5,772,600 for head 09, Tax Appeal Board, stand part of the schedule. Honorable members, the sum of $5,772,600 for head 09, Tax Appeal Board, is comprised of monies proposed for expenditure under the following subheads and items to be found in the draft estimates of recurrent expenditure. We shall now proceed to consider the draft estimates of recurrent expenditure. We are at page 46. Subhead 01, personnel expenditure. Item 001, general administration. Member for Kamuta Manzanilla.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one question. Line item 25.
Line item 25.
Remuneration. If the
Page 46.
TSU?
If the honorable minister can identify the direct charges to this line item, please.
Well, like all other similar bodies where there are direct charges, this is to pay the members of the board.
Board properly constituted.
Is it properly constituted? Yes.
Member for Caroni Central.
Yes. Under general administration, if a matter comes up that involves a suspected infringement of any kind on the part of a taxpayer, is that matter dealt with by the BIR, or is that, can the individual then challenge the matter to go to the appeal board, or is it dealt with by the appeal board?
The appeal board just deals with assessments. Yes. Just assessments.
It does not address any of those issues.
It deals only with assessments.
Okay.
Subhead 02, Goods and Services, item 001, General Administration. Subhead 03, Minor Equipment Purchases, General Administration, item 001, General Administration. Honorable members, the question is that the sum of $5,772,600 for head 09, Tax Appeal Board, stand part of the schedule. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. The sum of $5,772,600 for head 09, Tax Appeal Board, now stands part of the schedule. Thank you, Mr. Registrar. Thank you, Minister. Head 75, Equal Opportunity Tribunal. Head 75, Equal Opportunity Tribunal, $2,478,100. We're at page 369. Honorable members, could we have some order, please? I will now invite the Minister of Finance to make a brief opening statement, not exceeding 5 minutes.
The Equal Opportunity Tribunal has the exclusive jurisdiction to adjudicate certain defined claims of discrimination, victimization, and offensive behavior initiated under the Equal Opportunity Act. It is a superior court of record and has the powers and jurisdictions of such a court. Has the power to impose fines, make orders for damages, or grant injunctions. The tribunal's functions are judicial, which is separate and distinct from the Equal Opportunities Commission. That's it.
Honorable members, the question is that the sum of $2,478,100 for head 75, Equal Opportunity Tribunal, stand part of the schedule. Honorable members, the sum of $2,478,100 for head 75, Equal Opportunity Tribunal, is comprised of monies proposed for expenditure under the following subheads and items to be found in the draft estimates of recurrent expenditure. We shall now proceed to consider the draft estimates of recurrent expenditure. Subhead 01, Personal Expenditure, item 001, General Administration. Member for Kamuta Mansanilla.
Madam Chair, one question. Line item 23, salaries, direct charges, if the Honorable Minister can indicate.
It's the same thing.
I know, but then comes my next question. How many matters are pending before the tribunal?
Approximately 30 matters are pending before the tribunal, and in the last fiscal, they gave judgment in 12 matters.
Thank you.
Subhead 02, Goods and Services. Item 001, General Administration. Subhead 03, Minor Equipment Purchases. Item 001, General Administration. Honorable members, the question is that the sum of $2,478,100 for head 75, Equal Opportunity Tribunal, stand part of the schedule. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. the sum of $2,478,100 for Head 75 Equal Opportunity Tribunal now stands part of the schedule. I thank you, Chairman. Thank you. Head 02, Auditor General. Head 02, Auditor General, $41,804,855. I will now invite the Minister of Finance to make a brief opening statement for a maximum of 5 minutes.
General Department performs the audit function for the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago.
Honorable members, the question is that the sum of $41,804,855 for Head 02, Auditor General, stand part of the schedule. Honorable members, the sum of $41,804,855 for Head 02, Auditor General, is comprised of monies proposed for expenditure under the following subheads and items to be found in the draft estimates of recurrent expenditure and the draft estimates of development program. We shall now proceed to consider the draft estimates of recurrent expenditure. We are at page 6. Subhead 01, Personal Expenditure, item 001, General Administration. Member for Point of Peer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with the Minister of Finance. The Auditor General does a very important function for the government of Trinidad and Tobago. 01, Salaries and Cost of Living Allowance, 2019, $21.8 million. Could the Minister provide or state how many positions, what's the complement of staff at the Auditor General, how many are filled and how many vacant positions they have?
$200 filled, 100 vacant, and they're in the process of filling 50 of the 100.
50 of the 100. Follow-up question to the Minister of Finance. Those positions that are filled, are any top-level positions vacant at this point in time, like the Auditor General or the the hierarchy of the Auditor General office? Lack of a better phrase. Yes.
No.
No means all are filled? Okay.
Member for Naparima.
Thank you. 01. Is the Minister satisfied that the shortage of staff, 50 are being recruited, and there's a vacancy of 100? Is that vacancy or the vacancies that exist affect the output of the Auditor General's department?
Obviously.
Obviously, and therefore, since this is a critical function in government, to what extent, what is the shortfall in terms of what should be done and what has been delivered? I knew that they could outsource to firms in the private sector to do audit reports, but is it affecting, in your view, the output of this critical function?
Obviously.
What are you doing? Could you describe how this is affecting the efficiency and effectiveness of government's performance? And don't tell me significantly.
If they had.
Minister of Finance.
Substantially.
What is the answer? Substantially. So therefore, you're saying that substantially the Auditor General's department is not functioning at optimal capability because of the shortage of staff.
I am not saying that.
What are you saying?
What are you saying?
I am
substantially.
saying if they had their full complement of staff, they would be able to produce more output.
Yeah, but that's a vague answer. What I need to find out, Madam Chair, is the extent to which our report our financial statements are audited on time and effectively as in Singapore and first world countries? Yes, yes. And give us an idea of where we stand in the continuum from Haiti to Singapore in terms of this audit function.
I am afraid I'm unable to do that at this time.
Honorable members.
Madam Chair, I think the lunch shower has impacted on board members of the government significantly.
Chairman, I do not think I am in a position to look at the continuum of supreme audit agencies between Haiti and Singapore and place Trinidad and Tobago in that continuum at this point in time. However, I will endeavor to ask the Auditor General's Department to look at this question and provide an answer as soon as possible.
I'll rephrase the question, and this is the last time. Could the Minister tell us how many reports are outstanding to date?
That information will be provided to you in due course at the earliest possible time.
Thank you very much, sir. The excellent answer.
Item 002, Tobago Services. Subhead 02, Goods and Services. Item 001, General Administration, Member for Kamuto Manzanilla.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Honorable Minister, line item 28, with a decrease, do you see this hampering the function and the efficiency of the Auditor General's office?
Member, did you refer to Tobago?
Well, it's on the Tobago Services.
I thought I heard Tobago.
No, we passed Tobago.
02.
We had subhead 02, General Administration, item 001. So is it other contracted services on page 7 to which you refer? Thank you.
We are trying to do all this is just a comment. No.
Thank you.
Item 002, Tobago Services. Subhead 03, Minor Equipment Purchases. Item 001, General Administration. Subhead 04, Current Transfers and Subsidies. Item 001, Regional Bodies. Item 002, Commonwealth Bodies. Item 004, International Bodies. Honorable members, we will now move on to the draft estimates of development program. Subhead 09, we're at page 2. We have nothing on the, so we don't have anything on the multi-sectoral. Item 005. Item 005, multi-sectoral and other services. Honorable members, the question is that the sum of $41,804,855 for head 02, Auditor General, stand part of the schedule. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. The sum of $41,804,855 for head 02, Auditor General now stands part of the schedule. Auditor General, thank you. Thank you. Head 01, President. Head 01, President, $17,993,810. I will now invite the Minister of Finance to make a brief opening statement, not exceeding 5 minutes.
President is the head of state.
Honorable members, the question is that the sum of $17,993,810 for head 01 president shall stand part of the schedule. Honorable members, the sum of $17,993,810 for head 01 president is comprised of monies proposed for expenditure under the following subheads and items to be found in the draft estimates of recurrent expenditure. We shall now proceed to consider the draft estimates of recurrent expenditure. We are at page 2. Item 0, subhead 01, personal expenditure. Item 001, general administration. Subhead 02, goods and services. Item 001, general administration. Item 002, Tobago services. Subhead 03, minor equipment purchases. Item 001, general administration. Honorable members, the question is that the sum of $17,993,810 for head 01, president, stand part of the schedule. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. The sum of $17,993,810 for head 01, president, now stands part of the schedule. Thank you very much. Head 05, Parliament. Head 05, Parliament, $125,111,500. I will now invite the Minister of Finance to make a brief opening statement, not exceeding 5 minutes.
I did not receive an opening statement from the Parliament because they think I need no help. The Office of the Parliament provides administrative and apolitical support services to the Parliament of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago.
Honorable members, the question is? I take it we are so relieved. Honorable members, the question is that the sum of $125,111,500 for head 05 Parliament stand part of the schedule. Honorable members, the sum of $125,111,500 for head 05 Parliament is comprised of monies proposed for expenditure under the following subheads and items to be found in the draft estimates of recurrent expenditure and the draft estimates of the development program. We're at page 26. Subhead 01, personal expenditure. Item 001, general administration, member for Point Appeal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Minister, line item 01, salaries and cost of living allowances, $18 million. I just want to, for my own clarity, this $18 million includes all of Parliament staff, Leader of the Opposition staff, MPs, etc. That relates to Parliament.
Yes.
A follow-up question in respect to 01. In respect to terms and conditions, in respect to the staffing and the Leader of the Opposition office, we have been having some issues. It doesn't matter, who is in the opposition office at this point in time, or any time, but we have always had a challenge with the CPO in trying to give us clarity in the terms and conditions of certain members of the opposition staff, and I was wondering if...
It's not under this head.
What is not under this
head? It's under goods and services. You are anticipating.
Okay, sorry for that.
Yes, I wish that were true. We haven't reached there yet.
Okay, I'll refer.
Good.
Member for Kumucha Mansanella.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Honorable Minister, in light of the fact that you indicated in line item 01 that this includes all staff, including constituency, Can you identify the positions in the parliamentary staff, and particular, if there are any research services for in this area for parliamentarians, and particularly support services for experts that would be required in the committee stages, please?
Not yet.
Your consideration, Minister?
Well, I can tell you from my own experience in committees, if an expert is required, the committee makes a request of the speaker or the clerk, as the case may be, and the services are procured under goods and services. We are still on personnel expenditure. We haven't hit goods and services yet.
Item 002, Office of the Ombudsman. Subhead 02, Goods and Services. Item 001, General Administration. Member for Kamuta Mansinala.
Madam Chair, Honorable Minister, further to the discussion we just had on line item 01, would line item 16 take care of the request for research services for parliamentarians?
No, but I can tell you when we made substantial increases in the allowance for constituency office staff, there is an allowance there for a research officer who is treated specially and is allowed to be paid at a much higher rate than the rest of the staff. So research services are available to elected members of parliament through the constituency office by way of a provision for the operation of the constituency office and the engagement of staff in that office.
And if I may ask, Honorable Minister, if the same is applied to the Office of the Parliament in terms of research assistance and so forth. I know that they have been doing a fabulous job, but in terms of having funding to be able to increase their capacity in light of the very many committees that are in place. They have been a very much assistant in us, and I just want to commend it. And of course, I'm sure that it would require more funding.
Not yet. But you can make a case for it.
Okay. Thank you for the consideration. Line item 13, I see there's a decrease in funding, and I'm just asking, Minister, in light of the fact that you have an increase in fuel, is this adequate? Is this funding adequate to provide for the Parliament, who oftentimes have to go to various constituency offices to deliver critical mail?
I am told that if the provision is not adequate, they would seek a transfer of environment, or they can approach the Ministry of Finance for supplementation in the mid-year.
Thank you. Line item 64. I'm just asking, Honorable Minister, in light of the fact that so much is happening within the constituency offices, I'm asking if there is any consideration for an increase to goods, and in light of the fact that there's an increase in goods and services, if consideration will be given to line item 64 for a further increase.
Further increase of what?
Of funding to the constituency offices.
Well, what exactly do you mean by that? Do you mean an increase in the
allocation?
The allocation for expenses, an increase in the allocation for staff? What do you mean?
For expenses, Honorable Minister.
Like what? Telephone, electricity, and so on?
Yes, sir.
Okay. There's something called the House Committee.
Thank you. I know that it has not been in place for quite some time,
and that matter has to be addressed by the House Committee. Okay? So what I would suggest you do, if you're of the view that the present amount of, it's about $8,000, is not adequate for your telephone bill, then make representation to the House Committee and it will be considered.
We have not had a House Committee, so with all due respect, but thank you for the advice.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Line item 97, Minister. Expenses of the Office of the Leader of the Opposition, $3 million. I presume this line item is where the office staff of the Leader of the Opposition is utilized?
3 million is for that.
All right. Some of the concerns that we have who sets the terms and conditions of the staff at the opposition leader's office?
Chief Personnel Officer.
All right. Some of the concerns that we have relates to the staffing and the job description and understanding the CPO, understanding the role of some of the description and the job functions of the staff at the Leader of the Opposition office. And I was wondering that if some consideration could be given using the House Committee in Parliament to maybe determine the terms and conditions of not only the Leader of the Opposition staff, but maybe Parliament as a whole until we get some sort of autonomy in respect.
I didn't quite understand what you just said.
I was hoping that
terms and conditions of Parliament?
Of the Leader of the
Members of
Opposition
Parliament?
staff. No, not the members of the Parliament.
Okay.
Maybe the parliamentary staff and also the Leader of the Opposition staff in determining really and truly the CPO does not understand.
Hold on. You said parliamentary staff? What do you mean by that?
Well, we have staff at Parliament.
This line item is expense.
No, I'm talking in general now. Using the House Committee.
Specific, please.
Okay, let me just stay with line item 97.
Thank you.
In the Leader of the Opposition's staffing, we have some issues with it in the job description and function that is being really understood by the CPO or lack of understanding. And I was wondering, as a remedy, maybe we can set up a committee using the House Committee of Parliament to maybe look at and determine the terms and conditions and the remuneration of the opposition staff under line item 97.
Regrettably not. The CPO sets terms and conditions for all public officers.
So how could we enlighten them, the CPO of
Make representation.
Say that again?
Make representation.
Okay. Thank you, Minister. To who? Through the
Chief Personnel Officer.
Okay.
If you're not satisfied with the established process, where you make representation to the clerk, who then makes representation to the Chief Personnel Officer, make representation directly.
Thank you.
If you're not satisfied the way things are happening.
Thank you.
Okay.
Item 002, Office of the Ombudsman. Subhead 03, Minor Equipment Purchases. Item 001, General Administration. Item 002, Office of the Ombudsman. Subhead 04, Current Transfers and Subsidies. Item 002, Commonwealth Bodies. Item 004, International Bodies. Honorable members, we shall now move on to the draft estimates of the development program. We are page 9. Subhead 09, Development Program, Consolidated Fund. Item 005, Multi-Sectoral and Other Services. Kamuta Manzanilla.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Minister. Line item 005. I'm just asking if this includes the funding for the operations as well as the maintenance of the parliamentary proceedings.
What's the problem?
I'm just asking if on 005, if this figure includes the operations as well as the maintenance of the broadcasting parliamentary proceedings.
It's a mix between recurrent expenditure and development program.
Would the Honorable Minister look and see if it is adequate and probably look at revising it at all?
It's not for me to do that. It's for the Parliament to make representation, and I can assure you and the Parliament that if they make representation, they will be treated
Thank you, sir.
favorably.
Thank you.
Honorable members, the question is that the sum of $125,111,500 for head 05 Parliament stand part of the schedule. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. The sum of $125,111,500 for head 05 Parliament now stands part of the schedule. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, other officers of the Parliament. Honorable members, the question is that the sum of $43,672,000 $921,405 be approved as a grand total. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. The question is that the schedule now stands part of the bill. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. The schedule now stands part of the bill.
Clause 1.
The question is that Clause 1 stand part of the bill. The question is that Clause 1 now stand part of the bill. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. Clause 1 now stands part of the bill.
Clause 2.
The question is that Clause 2 stand part of the bill. The question is that Clause 2 now stand part of the bill. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. Clause 2 now stands part of the bill.
Clause 3.
The question is that Clause 3 stand part of the bill. The question is that Clause 3 now stand part of the bill. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. Clause 3 now stands part of the bill. Honorable members, the question is that the Appropriation Financial Year 2019 Bill 2018 be now reported to the House. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any against? The ayes have it. The bill shall now be reported to the House. Honorable members, we shall now suspend for 5 minutes.
This is the Parliament Channel and Parliament Radio 105.5 FM.
Words and terms, a parliamentary glossary. Chair. The chair is the presiding officer at a meeting of the House, whether the Speaker, the Deputy Speaker, President of the Senate, Vice President of the Senate, or in committee, the Chairman. Chairman. The member selected as the presiding officer of a committee. Chairman of committees of the whole. The member charged with presiding over all committees of the whole. This is usually the Speaker or the President of the Senate. Words and terms, a parliamentary glossary. For more on the Parliament's glossary, visit our website at ttparliament.org or follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram.
Bill Essentials, Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Amendment Bill 2017. The Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Amendment Bill 2017 addresses a multitude and wide range of issues relating to the use of vehicles and the nation's roadways. An act to amend the Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Act.
This is the Parliament Channel and Parliament Radio 105.5 FM.
The Honourable, the Speaker.
Minister of Finance.
Madam Speaker, mercifully, I wish to report that a bill entitled An Act to Provide for the Service of Trinidad and Tobago for the financial year ending on the 30th day of September 2019 was considered in Standing Finance Committee and passed without amendments. I now beg to move that it be read a third time and passed.
Honourable members, the question is that a bill entitled An Act to Provide for the Service of Trinidad and Tobago for the financial year ending on the 30th day of September 2019 be now read a third time and passed. All in favour say aye. Aye. Any against? The ayes have it.
Mr. Ember,
Yes.
Dr. Rowley,
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson Regis. Aye. Mr. Young,
Yes.
Mr. Dialsing.
Yes.
Mr. Hines,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Ms. Cudjoe,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mrs. Critchlow Coburn,
Yes.
Mr. Ford,
Yes.
Mr. Dillon,
Aye.
Mrs. Webster Roy,
Aye.
Dr. Gatsby Dolly,
Aye.
Ms. McDonald,
Yes.
Dr. Francis,
Yes.
Mrs. Jennings-Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Oliver,
Yes.
Mr. Antoine,
Yes.
Mr. Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Lee,
Abstain.
Mr. Charles,
Abstain.
Dr. Tawari,
Abstain.
Dr. Budalal,
Abstain.
Mrs. Nawala Hussain,
Abstain.
Can the decision be taken in silence, please?
Mrs. Gadin Gopi Singh,
Abstain.
Mr. Indar Singh,
Abstain.
Mr. Padarat,
Abstain.
Mr. Parry,
Abstain.
Ms. Ramdial,
Abstain. No.
Shame on your run around.
Honorable members, order, please. I'm having difficulty even hearing the clerk. Honorable members, upon a division, 21 members voted for, no members voted against, 10 members abstained. The bill is carried.
a bill entitled An Act to Provide for the Service of Trinidad and Tobago for the financial year ending on the 30th day of September 2019.
Leader of the House.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move a motion of privilege. Madam Speaker, in accordance with Standing Order 32, I seek your leave to raise a question of privilege in the House today. The first opportunity available for me to do so. Madam Speaker, on October 10th, 2018, earlier in this sitting of the House, before the commencement of the Standing Finance Committee, and during the reply of the Minister of Finance, the member for Oropouche East made the following statement directed to the member for Laventille West. And I quote, "That is why snake have some lead for you." End of quote. Madam Speaker, this phrase, "have some lead for you," is considered a grievous threat to life and limb, as it is a phrase familiar to persons involved in law enforcement and frequently used by those engaged in nefarious criminal activities. Madam Speaker, unfortunately, the vulnerable youth in our society also know the meaning of this phrase because it is common jargon in some popular music. Madam Speaker, even more troubling is the fact that an individual known as Snake has been convicted of assault against the member for Laventille West in the conduct of his parliamentary duties in his constituency. It is for this reason, Madam Speaker, that immediately after the utterances by the member for Oropouche East, there was an uproar in this House. All of this was carried live on the Parliament channel, radio station, and live video feeds. Madam Speaker, you will recall that the member for Laventille West immediately rose in protest and sought to direct your attention to the offense. By his reaction, it was clear that he apprehended a threat to his life from the words of the member for Oropouche.
I would expect every member of this House to display a certain decorum at all times. If any member finds matters conducted here, matters of some joke, they're free to go outside, have their fun, and come back in.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. By his reaction, it was clear that he apprehended a threat to his life from the words of the member for Oropouche East and drew this to the immediate attention of the chair and the House. However, the menacing words of the member for Oropouche East were not heard by the chair, but they were in fact heard by several members in this House and recorded in the Hansard. They have also been covered and repeated in newspapers and on social media. Madam Speaker, as leader of the House, I will be the first to admit that crosstalk is common in all parliamentary assemblies and has been a feature of our House. But such crosstalk has boundaries. With respect to volume, you, Madam Speaker, call the House to order and regularly remind us not to disrupt the tenor of the debate. However, with respect to content, such crosstalk never falls below the standard expected of all honorable members in this House until now. Madam Speaker, for a member of this House to tell another member during proceedings of this House, in the very face of this House, and in the hearing of members and others, that, and I again quote, "That is why snake have some lead for you," end of quote, amounts to a serious indignity to this House and an apparent threat to a member. Madam Speaker, Erskine May states that it is impossible to list every act which might be considered a contempt of this House. However, any act which has the tendency to directly or indirectly obstruct or impede the House or any of its members or officers in the performance of their functions, or can produce this result by bringing the House into ridicule, may constitute a contempt. Further, Madam Speaker, any act of disorderly or indecent conduct within the precincts of this House can be treated as a contempt, particularly if it is beneath the dignity of this House and brings the House into public odium. Madam Speaker, the conduct of the member for Oropouche East in this regard, 1, amounts to a threat to the life of another member of this House, whether direct or indirect. Madam Speaker, it is a serious indignity to this House and brings it into public odium. Madam Speaker, this House has a duty to protect itself, and it is against this background that I raise this matter as one concerning a matter of privileges and ask for it to be sent to the Committee of Privileges for consideration and report. I beg to move.
Honorable members, I hereby reserve my decision, which shall be delivered at a subsequent time. Honorable members, I now will deliver my ruling based on a matter of privileges that was raised on the last occasion. Honorable members, at a sitting of the House held on Wednesday, October 10th, 2018, the member for Aruka Maloney and leader of the House sought and was granted leave to raise a matter of privilege in accordance with Standing Order 32. Having reserved my decision at that time, I now rule, pursuant to my duty under Standing Order 32-4, on whether a prima facie case of breach of privilege has been made out, thereby warranting further investigation. Freedom of speech in Parliament is of fundamental importance. Parliament is intended to be a forum for free and frank debate, and members should be able to raise issues without having to agonize over the exact form of words used or providing extensive supporting evidence for any assertion made. Honorable members, the privilege of freedom of speech enjoyed by you as members of Parliament is in fact the privilege of your constituents. It is not for your personal benefit, but to enable all members to discharge their functions in the public interest. As Speaker, it is my duty to jealously guard and defend the freedom of speech and debate. However, the freedom carries with it a responsibility to exercise the right judiciously and prudently. Therefore, the privilege of freedom of speech does not absolve members from being accountable for statements they make. As I have repeatedly advised, members are required to take full ownership and responsibility for things said in this House. Freedom of speech is not an exemption from the duty to research carefully, nor does it discharge members from being circumspect before exercising the freedom. Pursuant to the standing orders, my sole duty is to consider whether the submission made by the member for Aruka Maloney suggests a reasonable possibility that a contempt has occurred. Honorable members, I have considered the submission, and I am of the view that a prima facie case of a contempt has been established, and that the matter should be referred to the Committee of Privileges for its investigation. In making this ruling, I do not express a decided opinion on the substantive issue, as the Committee of Privileges will thoroughly consider and investigate the matter raised, and I so rule. Leader of the House.
Thank you very kindly, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to move that this House do now adjourn to a date to be fixed.
Honorable members, the question is that this House do now adjourn to a date to be fixed. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any against? I think the ayes have it. This House now stands adjourned to a date to be fixed.